So, I think we are live. Yeah. Welcome everybody to our live talk here. My name is Natascha Zeljko and I'm the founder and CEO of the content platform maleOneZero. And I'm very thrilled to bring you this live talk in partnership with SAP Women in Tech initiative. Today's topic, which I am particularly thrilled because it is one close to my heart, is circular economy. And we will explore together with three experts, our three panelists. We will dive deeper into the topic, and we will explore how to drive change in business practices. Yeah, and without further ado, I would like to present you our three speakers. I'd like to start with Katharina Schweitzer. Katharina is a consultant for circular economy solutions at SAP, and she is an industrial engineer, and also she holds a master in sustainability and management and economics. And Katharina's previous work with the Circular Economy Initiative Germany for Architect has provided her with an extensive knowledge in plastics and packaging, which is a very interesting field for circular economy especially. Yeah, in her current role, she leverages her expertise in data, a crucial driver for transformation, for all kinds of transformation, and especially for the circular economy. Yeah, welcome, Katharina. Very delighted to have you here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, next we have Marie Asano. She is a partner at the European Circular Bioeconomically Fund, so very long term, so it shortens ECBF. And Marie holds a PhD in chemistry, and initially she intended to work in consultancy, but however, her path led her to a thrilling, the thrilling world of the venture capital sector. Marie has worked with the renowned high-tech Gründerfonds and now contributes her expertise to the ECBF. And alongside her role, she is also an expert advisory board member of Exist for startups from science. Welcome, Marie. And last but not least, we have here Janine Thies. Janine is a circular economy manager at BMW Group and founder and coach at Pure Edge. And hot from the press, as I learned this morning at LinkedIn, you are also, I have to look it up, sorry, faculty manager for circular economy management and innovation for ecological transformation at the European Institute of Innovation for Sustainability. So this is quite a term, and we will talk about this new role also because it's thrilling to learn more about education, especially in this field. But in her, I would say, everyday life, you are at BMW at the forefront of one of the most exciting circular economy projects in this industry at the Recycling and Dismantling Center near Munich. I've been there, so I know it, and it's really, really captivating. Yeah, welcome, Janine.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would propose to get started. We have the apologies for being a little bit late. We are 5 minutes late because again we had some technical issues, but we solved it. And Marie is joining now with her smartphone. As sometimes you have to be flexible because tech is sometimes we are sometimes lost in this space. But I want to address to the audience, please feel free to ask questions and also post comments. Simply use the comment section and we will address this at the end of our talk, which will be about in 45 to maximum 60 minutes. The weather is beautiful, so we are really happy joining anyways, despite the hot summer weather. So we will be short and the content will be thrilling. So yeah, happy you joined us. Yeah, so I would like to start with the first question, perhaps to all of you, the first round, so to say. When you look back, when you were first introduced to the concept of the circular economy, what aspects of this topic captivated your interest? Perhaps we can start with Janine.
So you mean when I first heard about the term circular economy?
Yeah,
Okay.
and when it became clear the concept, what was the thrilling thing? What made you follow up on this and getting into this field?
Well, actually, it was just one point. It was the point of matching something that's totally valuable for me personally. So, at the one hand, create something that's valuable for our society, some like certain service or product, and on the other hand, to create something that's also good for nature. So, some sustainable product. And actually, for me, I grew up with a really sustainable mindset, I would say, and realized that in business, they just don't care about sustainability. So actually, I think it's almost 10 years ago that I realized circular economy could be a really cool model to not only to show what kind of possibilities we have to become more sustainable in certain strategies, because I think it's really easy to understand, but also to see or to make it visible that it's possible. You have profit. Yeah, you can make profit still, but you can also be sustainable. And that's actually the one thing that totally hooked me to show both are possible. And yeah, it's really cool way to go this way and not to produce something that really hurts actually nature.
Mm-hmm. So it's also the purpose part in business and to link sustainability with business and even with profits also, because also this is a point, right, in this changing world. Yeah, I would like to hand
Sorry,
over
I
to,
just want to. Sorry, I just
yeah,
want to add something.
sure.
It's also to make sure the things that you produce that you still have the material available. I don't know, in 30 years. Also to take care of your own future competences of your company, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
only doing something good. It's really some egoistic thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's a
Yeah.
win-win situation for nature and for business, and
Mm-hmm.
that's something you can't be against it
Mm-hmm.
actually.
That's true. So this is a new perspective on this. And I would like to hand over to Marie, as Marie is in this venture capital sector. And yeah, and what was your first encounter with this topic, which now gained traction over the last couple of years? But I think 10 years ago, nobody, at least perhaps Janine, but nobody I know uh, has been dealing with it.
I think so. If I were to be honest, my first ever encounter was, well, away from this business context. I think it's with at home with my grandparents, right? I mean, it when I first heard circular economy, I was like, well, wait a second. So you're going to reuse things, take it apart and try to keep it in the circle and reuse it as much as possible and get maximum value. And I was thinking, well, so I'm Japanese, right? And we have this word like mottainai, don't throw it away. That's a waste. And so for me, when I first encountered it, it was really, well, when I entered my working life, also with being in a VC at High-Tech Gründerfonds, I was a bit like, well, like, there's a fancy word for it, but it kind of makes sense because the concept of reusing your resources to the maximum possible, this is kind of coming from the older ages. It got
Mhm.
forgotten in this whole hype, I guess, where, capitalism, we had a lot of money to spare and everybody could throw it away. And we're kind of going back into this very more traditional thinking back then when, resources
Mhm.
were not that abundant. So for me, my first encounter, I would say personally, was a bit earlier, but in a business context, definitely in the venture world. And I completely agree with Janine as well. I mean, financial gain plus sustainability plus this whole impact thing has to go hand in hand, because you can't, I mean, we're not a philanthropic organization and there's very few entities that do things altruistically. So if it doesn't have some sort of relevance, a business relevance, a financial relevance, it's never going to have as many people that adopt it, and therefore the impact that you're going to have in society is going to be much lower. So that was a little bit my sort of encounter and my perspectives on the concept.
Interesting that you refer to your youth, or to see back the older generations, how they dealt with this. I had it too, because my grandma, who ran a farm back then in the former Yugoslavia, which is today Slovenia, she didn't even have a trash can, and I was thinking, what does she do with her trash? Because I was raised in the Western world, and from today's perspective, it's clear she didn't produce trash or waste, so to say. It's really interesting. And I would like also to ask Katharina, what was your, so to say, aha moment in this matter?
It's very similar, I think, to what I said before. So I was studying sustainability economics and management, and there I learned a lot of alternative concepts as well. But when I heard about circular economy and this idea of decoupling resource use from economic activities, that was like, okay, this could really work, because there's still, you can make profit and still being good to the environment. And I think that was said already, but this was really like, okay, it's not a lot of other concepts are linked to relinquishment, using less, and it's sometimes or something that might not work out, or we see that it doesn't work out. So people want to spend their money, they want to have a certain comfort, and I think we cannot like really go back to times and really just be sufficient. Unfortunately, we would need more of it. But this concept of bringing both together, doing new business models where you can be sustainable, but on the same time making money with them. This was something I thought, okay, I need to learn more about it, and I really think we need it to be future-proof.
Yeah, I see that, and it's an interesting aspect. I watched a documentary actually from Joko Winterscheid. I don't know if you saw it. It's running on Amazon, and he also, in the first or second episode, he is interviewing a Danish architect, and I forgot the name, but he talks about sustainable hedonism, which is a cool concept, because he says it could also be fun. It doesn't have to be, we can't go back 50 years. So we have also to take along the people, right, and convince them that it's a cool concept. And that's exactly what you were referring to. But I'm curious about your everyday work. Could you refer a little bit, perhaps, Katharina, what are your specific tasks and projects, and related to circular economy? What do you do?
I work as a consultant at SAP, mainly helping customers to implement our solutions, circular economy solutions. And mainly my main role is actually in the packaging sector. So there's not a lot of new regulation also on packaging, but also customers, or our customers, want to become more sustainable in the packaging sector. And a lot of data sharing also needs to be going on in order to get the full circle done. And that is actually where I'm involved in. So our customers, they, for example, want to set up their database on packaging, so that they even know what are they actually using as their packaging, how can they maintain the data in order to then use it for making analytics, for example, on how recyclable is it, or where could I improve. Is it, how much would I need to pay because of plastic packaging taxes? So this is, the main thing that I'm doing at the moment. And but there's lots of other things going with it. So, for example, also this topic of building really an ecosystem is one that is very central in my job. So we know nobody can achieve circular economy on its own, and we need to share also data, share information to the others in the supply chain or in the ecosystem to make really closed circles. And that is also a hot topic. Okay, how can we really share information and working together as one ecosystem to make the vision a reality?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, the ecosystem part, right? Because you said nobody can do it alone, so we need to collaborate. And there's one really, I think it's a beacon because it was never done before, a whole platform, the Catena X, which we also just covered in an interview, where also SAP and also BMW and BASF and a lot of other big corporates are involved. This is really, really thrilling. And I would like to ask you, Janine, because you're also working on this in this area, so to say, at the RDZ, which I just explained, the Recycling and Dismantle Center for BMW. You're also gathering a lot of data, which you also share with others in order to learn how to get it better done, the resources back in the loop, right? Perhaps you can share a little bit about your everyday business.
Yeah, so what we basically do, I would say, it's rather recycle the future. So we do a lot of prototyping, recycling. So all the new materials or innovations that actually going to come up in the near future, we find recycling or reuse, or in the sense of circular economy, finding solutions how to handle those kind of materials or innovations. So that's kind of different aspect of the job. And the other aspect is that Natascha, you know that we've been there already from BMW started 1994 with that kind of project. So there's a lot of know-how there, and we try to communicate way more because I don't know, for some reason I think it's something Bavarian special. BMW has been doing that for so long, but not communicating about it, although it could be so useful for other companies to see how they have been doing it for so long, very successfully. And there was actually not really, in the beginning, there was no business case behind that. It was just the knowledge about or decision, basically, we taking responsibility about our product end of life. So and that's something I totally enjoy working there, because it's not typical a classical business driven. It's also, there are a lot of values going on, and that's something that I really enjoy also in my role to communicate. Yes, I think that's something that holds the whole circular economy together. Having clear own values and connect with others to really be able to collaborate with each other. And my role is also to really talk about and make an experience out of that, right? It could be really boring to just tell you what we actually do, but Natascha, you've been there. When you experience that, kind of how much passion is actually in that plant, right? How the people work together and how they drive the whole circular economy. It's just infecting other people. That's my role, and my team's taking care of communicating in any kind of distribution channels about what actually BMW is doing in that field. That's one thing. And the other thing is I'm not only working for BMW, I'm also self-employed. And I do a lot of keynote speeches because I noticed that there's one thing that people sometimes don't think about, that when they're talking about circular economy, they don't talk about usually about mindset. How can you bring the right people together, and how to how should I say that to create that spark within each single one person that's collaborating in that field, really create that circular economy. Because I noticed during the last years, it's been a very long time that I actually started in that field, and I noticed you really have to explain what you do, why you do it, and then match it with the interest and passion with the people who are involved in the whole project. Otherwise, it's not going to be successful. And that's something I just share and try to make sure that my knowledge gets spread out there, and other companies, they don't have to start like, maybe they don't do the same mistakes as we did in the beginning, and we can get the circular economy to the next level. That would be actually amazing.
Yeah, it all starts with the people, and but it all starts also with startups, and that's what I wanted to ask Marie, because you are dealing on a daily basis with startups, because you are evaluating their business models. And what do you see if you look at those innovations, and which fields do you see the most thrilling newcomers? What is your take on this?
Yeah, so to answer your previous question, which you also answered in what you said, so we're just a typical venture capitalist, right? So we look at startups, we invest money, right? High innovative companies, we buy shares, the company becomes successful, we sell our shares, and then we have a financial return. Plus, we're an impact fund, so we're an ESG fund as well. So we combine the two. So we try to bring the financial returns to our investors combined with sustainability KPIs, because there's only a very particular company that we're looking at. And of course, this ESG KPIs is extremely important for us, because we're an Article 9 fund. So it's basically a designation of how sustainable you are as a fund. So in order to prevent greenwashing, and Article 9 is as green as it gets. So along with Planet A and other peers. So what do I see? Well, to be frank, we don't do just circular economy. So we do bio-based as well. The difference is obviously circular economy is anything that's going to stay around and round and round. You utilize as long as possible. And then at some point, hopefully there's a second life to it. Bio-based is everything that comes from nature, goes back to nature. And I think, our sort of concept of circularity by doing bio-based is inherently, if carbon comes from nature, whatever comes from nature goes back into nature. So it's kind of a very big circular economy type of scheme. And the different innovations we look at range really from, innovations in agri-tech. So biostimulants, for instance. So in order to prevent or to minimize fertilizer use, so synthetic fertilizer use, which is also very energy intensive. You can use naturally occurring bacteria in the soil. I like to call it kind of like Actimel for the plants, like you have like the microbiome, the plant microbiome, and you stimulate the plants in a way that you don't have to use, for instance, fertilizer, or it can be alternative meat, or it can be something in bio-based packaging, for instance, like instead of this one-use, throwing packaging, you have something that comes maybe from seaweed, or maybe it's something that comes from a by-stream of paper production. So basically cellulose that degrades instead of you having to use something fossil-based. So you have to stop me there, Natascha. I can talk about it for ages, but I think it's really...
No, but that's so thrilling fields. I want to really get into it, so it's fine, yeah. Yeah, and perhaps for you, Katharina, a question, because we had a short prep talk. We talked about technology and also the role of technology, because a lot of those innovations are very tech-based. Where do you see perhaps the bigger accelerators to get it really done? We will never be done, but to really get ahead and with the topic of circular economy, which technologies could help?
It's hard maybe to break it down to single technologies, but what really helps is data, I think. So as you said, I was working for the Circular Economy Initiative Germany before, and there we did policy advisory, bringing together the full circular chain for packaging. And what always came to to me, or what was always a point that we had is like, okay, we need data in order to prove what is the best way. We need data that we need to exchange, so that actually the person that comes next in the circle can work with what you get from the previous person in the supply chain. And so this data is, I think, a critical point, and also exchange of data throughout the whole ecosystem. And then, of course, you can use technologies like AIs or blockchain to make it better work. So, for example, I'm in a project at the moment to trace recycled content via a blockchain-based solution through the supply chain, so that in the end, if you as a customer have a packaging and it says, okay, it's recycled content, that you can be really sure that it actually is, because it was traced throughout the whole supply chain. I mean, this is just one attribute. You could do this for child labor, for any kind of attribute you would want to. And also AI is, of course, something that can help a lot. It helps generally in optimizing processes, and so it can also do for sustainability. I work, for example, in a project even in remanufacturing, so this was not with packaging, but also in the remanufacturing sector. And there we used AI to enhance identification of old parts. So if they are how do you say, corroded, then it's like really hard to understand, okay, what was this part before, and what is maybe the product number if there is no product number on it anymore. And there we could, for example, use AI in order to identify the part and to make it ready for being remanufactured. Also, if there is data lags and we need to AI could help, like, to do the data cleansing for us and use the data then later on in for example, recyclability assessments and so on. So I think we really need to be aware of those new technologies and then really use it in our use cases that we have.
To combine it to help to get a better understanding and to trace it back, as you told us. And this is also
maybe sorry.
Sorry?
Yeah, like to say, okay, AI is not like an end in itself, but let's think about how can we use AI in order to improve the sustainability cases that we have. And I think that's something we all need to work on more, to say, okay, AI, blockchain, it's nothing an end in itself, but it has so much potential to leverage also sustainability in our processes.
Yeah, it's a tool and an accelerator in the best case. And this brings us also to the question how to measure things, right? In regard to ESG, we have to report things, but it's not so easy. We talked about this, Marie, that CO2, for example, reduction. This is not easy, but it's doable to measure it. Other ESG aspects are not so easy. Could you refer a little bit to this? To explain it?
Yeah, so being an ESG fund and an Article 9 fund under the Sustainable Finance Disclosure of the European Union, here's a trivia for you, all those folks in late afternoon. We have a lot of reporting and monitoring obligations, of course, because the European Union, as well as what the finance landscape, especially in impact investing, doesn't want, are investors that run around and say, oh, we're sustainable, we only do green investments, and then they start maybe exiting their portfolio companies to the evil fossil-based oil and gas companies, or basically doing investments where it sounds good, maybe you're making alternative leather products, but you have child labor with basically children making your product somewhere that's not in Europe. So obviously there's a lot of things that we have to monitor and check. And on the environment and climate part, a good benchmark, and a benchmark that we use, is basically greenhouse gas emissions. It's easy, it's quantifiable. You have scope 1, 2, 3 emissions. You can basically say, well, look, if I have a technology, let's take the alternative leather example, let's check the carbon emissions, the greenhouse gas emissions of a typical leather product, keeping in mind leather is a waste stream usually of animal or meat production, because usually you don't really know what to do with it unless you have premium leather. And let's look at sort of the LCA, and then let's compare it with a alternative leather product, whether that comes from bacterial nanocellulose or mycelium or even lab cultured leather. Let's measure it. So input, how much carbon emissions is happening here, how much greenhouse gas emissions, what does the LCA, so life cycle analysis, look like, and sort of what does the bill kind of look like at the end. So that's relatively easy for companies that are, for instance, in agriculture, where, okay, I reduced the utilization of synthetic fertilizer. Great. That's a very simple KPI you can measure. But as soon as a innovation becomes indirect in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, like everything that's health tech related, I mean, indirectly, if you are keeping people healthier for longer, you're not dependent on the healthcare sector, which, by the way, is one of the heaviest carbon emitters. Think about all the consumables that the doctors are utilizing, because nobody wants to use this plastic syringe twice. It's kind of key. But also, the hospital stays, the drugs that you're taking. So in a way, by keeping people healthier, you're contributing to a society which is less carbon intensive, but there's really no way to quantify that. Same with things that have to do with biodiversity, for instance, like you're helping the flora of your particular area by using, I don't know, a biological fertilizer, but it's not. So that's the difficulty when it comes to monitoring, because it's very one-dimensional. At least this is my personal opinion, if you're only basing it on carbon. For social and governance, by the way, which is usually forgotten in the grand scheme of things, obviously it's climate oriented, but obviously social, it's relatively easy. So really looking at female to male board members, for instance, what are your hiring practices look like? Do you have work safety for your employees? Are you employing slave labor? These are sort of the obvious parts. In governance is obviously how the company is run. Does it have a proper board? Or is there conflict of interest? So all of these points we look at, and everything kind of comes together. But obviously it's not, there's no way to do it perfectly. And there's a lot of things that slip through because, unfortunately, it's a very complex topic.
Yeah, complexity is for sure a thing, especially as we're looking at so many dimensions, not only, as you said, on CO2, but also all the other dimensions as well. And then we had this already as a topic, the regulations coming, right? Companies are worried and a little bit stressed also, because they are anxious how to tackle it, how to do these reportings, what do they have to, to do and to report, to do it finally. But we are talking always also about the challenges, and there are a lot of challenges. But at the other side, there are also upsides, because there can be also advantages in having a regulation. So what is your take on this, perhaps Janine or Katharina, who wants to answer to the regulations, if there are also advantages?
Katharina, do you want to say something?
I can start. Maybe from my previous work, I did a lot also consulting to regulation, and what I actually experienced there was that companies were not generally negative regarding regulations, but rather it was also to create a common level playing field. So actually, I think this is what regulations can really be doing, is like creating this common level playing field and making the same rules for everyone, because it's hard for first movers maybe to go into the sustainable direction, because it will cost them, of course. They will have a first investment, and making it via regulation is then, okay, everyone has to do it. So there's no disadvantage in going first. So that's maybe one thing. And another thing is, I think also harmonization is a point that maybe still lacking. But if you would ask me about stronger EU regulations, and this is, I think, what we currently see. there is strong EU regulations coming in the space of circular economy, and I think this is also good. But because what I see now at SAP is that a lot of companies that it's very difficult for companies to stick to all the national rules, because, for example, in the packaging sector, every country has its own regulation on the packaging, and it would be really good to have more harmonization there. And there is where I think we need stronger rules from the European Union to harmonize everything and make it easier for everyone.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Add something. I think that was a really good point. So we as investors, we like regulations. We like regulations because, well, a lot of business models are dependent on regulatory change. For instance, if the if single-use plastics are completely banned, right, then obviously that opens the door for companies to establish themselves that would have not necessarily established themselves if this ban was not in place. If I don't know, a certain additive in food is also banned, that basically opens the door for every other company who would have not gotten even the foot in the door because of either they can't reach the pricing or the technical maturity of the existing technology if it were not for the regulatory change. So as much as I understand that for the larger companies that are well established in a certain business, it's like a huge shakeup, basically. Oh my God, what's happening here? I feel like the only way to establish certain, sustainable technologies or certain, KPIs around circular economy, i.e., hey, stop putting it in landfill, but your product prototype from the beginning has to do this circle. And all the value players along the value chain have to be aligned for the same goal, is only going to happen if you have that extra kick, i.e. financial loss if you don't do it, or a financial benefit if you do implement it. Because at the end of the day, I think for big businesses, and correct me if I'm from Katharina, Janine, you guys are from big corporate. I'm the little guy here kind of outside saying these bad things. But I feel like everybody at the end of the day has their business lines and has their organization. And everybody's looking at kind of their profits they're making on their balance sheet. And, either you have the management who says, guys, this is super important, do it, get it done, which some bigger companies are obviously doing. Either you have that regulatory change where people are like, oh, if I don't do that, I'm actually gonna lose money and lose my business. So I have to adapt adequately.
Good question. I would like to give it further to you, Janine.
Well, I think when we talk about regulations, it's also necessary to talk about mindset again. Marie, for me, it's not, probably everyone thinks, okay, car manufacturer, right? Regulations, we always think regulations are bad. It's not like that, because it really depends if you're prepared, if you have the right mindset, and if we are not surprised that the new regulations, and especially in the EU, are coming up, and it's not that the whole company gets shaken because we are prepared, because we're taking care of our future products already. So that's actually a cool thing to see. We are right on track, because you have to make a decision for the future, like today, right? And you never know, is that the right direction or not? And that decision always comes with taking money as an investment for the future of your company, right? So with that kind of regulations, it's also a feedback for us. Oh yeah, that decision like 5 or 10 years ago was the right way to go. So it's also about the mindset when it comes to regulations, actually.
Yeah,
and I can imagine there are companies out there, they're really like in a hurry now to find solutions.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, so that's a mindset question, to also see opportunities and create business out of that. For you as Katharina at SAP, you are somehow in a comfortable position because you collected data the whole SAP life, so to say, and you have the data and you can work with the data, because what we learned is you need data to transform. So for you, it's a good starting point, isn't it?
Well, we don't have the data, so the companies own their own data. We only managing, or we help with our systems them to manage the data.
Okay, that point.
But indeed, we are like the regulations don't hit us in the case that we have to change how we run, but rather it gives us maybe business to help our company, our customers to stick to the new regulations or finding ways how to realize the new business. That is true. And yeah, especially about regulations where you need now data sharing throughout the supply chain. And all this, yeah, that's certainly something where we profit from doing it. But I think, yeah, it's also absolutely necessary in order to achieve that circularity. And just emphasizing what Janine says, BMW also with Catena X. Yeah, that's the step into the right direction. And if you're prepared and really willing also to be part of this circular economy, then yeah, you can do it.
Yeah, but I would say the thing is to open up. You can't do it like you did it the years before. You have to open up. You have to look for collaborations. You have to be willing to share. Also, this is something new. Competitors in the past didn't share anything. They just everybody did their own business, and yeah, so this is changing massively.
Yeah, we have to enable our customers to share. So, for example, using the APIs or using common industry APIs in order to enable customers sharing the data, or providing them with tools how to exchange data, and also maybe to build up rules for the data sharing, so that not just everyone can access information of a company, but that the data sovereignty has to be given. So the company itself decides who can see the data, for what time, what can this other company do with it. But it's like not a very complicated process, but we enable our customers to do it like within one cockpit. Making life easy for everyone. Yeah.
Janine, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, you said you changed something that we have to open up, right, and share the data. And I think before we open up, we have to realize like the brutal truth, I would say. So because we have to realize, and we're kind of unique momentum we are in our economy at the moment. And after that, we have to make a decision. Either we open up and find collaboration partners, or we just die maybe as a company, right?
Yeah, and an important part of this journey, of this incredible journey, and especially at this times we are living right now, is education, to have knowledge about things. And that's what I would like to ask all of you. How important is this for you, Janine? You are now doing this program, and you are frequently in Italy, in Rome, I think this takes place. So can you perhaps elaborate a little bit about what is the most important skill, for example, you are teaching your master students?
I would say it's all about soft skills, and I really like to call them even harder skills, because it's really hard to cultivate them. Actually, you don't go like on a 4-day training and then you're totally creative and intuitive and empathic, right? It's rather something you develop over a very long time, and it's not finished at some certain point. You have to do consistently, like personal development, basically. And what I try to create for my students, I can just offer kind of like a space where they find themselves their own place within that space, right? Everyone got like different passion, interests about some certain fields of circular economy. And in that sense, for that master, it's a circular economy management master. So I want them to really explore themselves, who am I and who do I actually want to be, what kind of impact want to create in that world. And then I help them to match that with what's actually going on in business and what kind of strategies we do have in our field of circular economy. And there's always like kind of aha moment and matching moment where actually both worlds come together. And I think that's like the most crucial part, because then they realize, okay, me as a person, the whole person as I am, with everything, my whole backpack, I can go there and make a difference. And I really want them to, like in the end of my module, that I want them to feel that strength, that they can do it. So, and yeah, on that way, leadership is very important. Empathy is very important. Creativity, and also a lot of self-reflection. And I like basically combine that with. I also teach what is circular economy, but I want them to really understand who am I and how can I personally dive into that field, because then they're gonna make the most impact, I guess. That's actually what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. These are perhaps things you wouldn't expect. Perhaps you wouldn't expect first, but yeah, if you dive deeper, it all starts with this questions about humanity, also. Yeah, right.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I've seen, and Marie, you probably also, I've seen a lot of really cool ideas and technologies come and go, and they go not because the technology is not good or the idea is not good. It's because of the people. They are not developed behind that. They are not able to have like a transition or to self-develop themselves into that or with that technology. And that's a skill you just can't do that when you have a lot of like self-reflection, when you work hard on your soft skills. Yeah.
I would like, before perhaps we do a closing round, we have a question here from the audience. Somebody's asking, what is the biggest barrier standing in the way of change, and how can we all work together more efficiently? Who has an idea?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think it's the same thing that we just talked about. In that moment when I, as a employee or as me, have clear for myself who am I and what kind of like impact do I want to have, I'm just gonna have a positive impact, right? But if I don't have that clear, and there are many people out there, they think they have to play a role in their company, right? They go there, and in front of the door, they just leave their personal backpack behind. Then they go there in that company, play that role, but they're leaving something really valuable behind. And I think that's crucial, that employees understand that they only can make a difference when they come as a whole person, and also are brave enough to show the whole person, because only then you create something totally new, or you add something that the company, it says human capital, right? It's actually, I don't like that term in general, but human capital is then really valuable when you come as something that's unique. And everyone is unique, but not everyone is showing that. And that uniqueness, I think that's one of the key things that we have to create, like a safe space for our employees to dive into that unique space and show themselves. Right? Yeah.
Would you agree, Katharina, for example?
Yeah, I don't even want to comment because this is so nice words, actually. I can completely agree, and I think this is then kind of the starting point for everything else. So I think there's also huge organizational barriers, structures. So companies like to collaborate in an ecosystem, demand so different organizational structures even to be able in doing this. Maybe also like this strict roles in organizations don't work for this idea of creating ecosystems. And this is certainly very connected. But I also think another huge barrier is still also policy. So it's still just too cheap to be unsustainable. So that's besides like this personal and organizational shift, I think also something where a lot of work is still needed to make it just more expensive to be unsustainable.
Marie, you nodded a lot, so you would agree?
Yeah, I agree with what you guys said, but I feel like I'm a little bit the party pooper. So I think I think this relatively few people are actually reflected enough that they go through that cycle, Janine. And I think that's why this whole mindset change and to be implemented in a company is really important. God, I'm going to sound like such a horrible person. I think it's really what's preventing us is ourselves. People, I mean, humans are a creature of habit. People love habits. I mean, there's a reason why actually we develop habits in terms of psychology. It's because it doesn't cost any brain power. So back in the day when you were foraging the bush, you know, you could basically start picking the berries out of habit to think about it, so you could basically do something else. So that there's also a psychological aspect of why people develop habits. And I think the only thing in the way is ourselves, and therefore positive, it's the change we can bring in ourselves. But I think a lot of people, because they're just not, they don't think about this stuff. They go to their work, they have their job, they do their thing, they don't give a crap, and they go home and they're like, okay, well, that was that, my job, I'm gonna go out for a drink. And I think a lot of the times the jolt, you know, maybe it's not a big shake, but just this come on, snap out of it, can be as terrible as it sounds, like world life events that change your day-to-day routine, i.e. COVID. I'm not saying thank God COVID happened, but after COVID, everybody was like, oh crap, you know, look, the supermarkets were empty, the supply chains are not working, people running around with masks. Holy shit, this oops, I'm not supposed to swear. Holy crap, this whole health thing. And vaccines are super important. And maybe if I don't take care of the planet, maybe all these like climate people have something to add, and our world as we know it is going to end. So I think in addition to what Katharina said about, you know, regulation and financial incentives, which can sweeten it so people, it's not cheap to be unsustainable anymore. It's also that jolt that some people need to get out of the hamster wheel and open up and be that reflective and, you know, person that thinks about, okay, so what are the implications of my actions on future generations?
Yeah,
I really would like to add something. I totally agree, Marie. I really would like to add that that's actually, from my point of view, everybody who gets paid for leadership, being a leader, that's your job, right? Not like tell the people what they have to do, be there as a coach, create a safe space where they can really like show themselves, explore themselves. And I think that's something yeah, every company has to develop that somehow and train their leadership and management to also be able to create that space. And of course, it's always easier if there's like a shake from the outside, right? It's easier, but it's more efficient when it comes out of yourself, when it's like an incentive, right? Intrinsic, yeah.
Yeah. So perhaps both is true at the same time. And at the moment, we see these shakings and we see the crisis and we see pressure from outside to really change behavior. There's already a certain awareness to that. Not for all. It still is a thing for certain people, but not for the whole society. Yeah, but we're nearly to our end, and the weather is beautiful. It's a hot summer day and almost night. I would like to close the session with one last question to you guys. Perhaps to assume something, to get your vision on this. We saw it in the circularity gap report that only 7.2% of our economy is circular at the moment, and it used to be more. It's a decline from 9%. So I'm curious to know, what do you think? How will things go in the future? What will be? Assume what will happen in the next decades. Will there be progress, or what we will see? Perhaps Janine, you start.
Actually, I'm very hopeful. I would say maybe that's the right term for it. That people understand the benefit of trading is a closed loop, for example. Like on a really also small scale, not like all the big companies, but also in your daily life. It adds something positive to your life, right? And when I think about saying the word circular economy the first time 8 years ago in my company, and everyone was like, circular what?
What?
Is that the same thing like Kreislaufwirtschaft? And now everyone knows the term. There's a huge development actually in terms of being aware of there is that kind of model and the benefits of that model. So I'm really hopeful actually that 7.2% can raise significant.
Okay, that's a good bet. Marie, you are dealing every day with founders and innovators. What do you think? Because you, I think, have the vision in the future somehow.
Well, I would first of all ask what is defined under circular economy, the 7.2%? Is it really things that are being recycled or go back in its original form and then being utilized? What about bio-based and biodegradable things?
Mm.
It seems very sobering. I'm kind of hoping there's also, a bio-based element to it. There's a little bit more in terms of how many technologies are sustainable. I think, circular economy is one aspect of how you can be sustainable, and hopefully there's a little more around it.
Mm-hmm.
That being said, I think, okay, so I'm a optimist, pessimist, a bit schizophrenic. The optimist in me, and this is why I work in innovation, is obviously I want that to increase, and I want, the technologies that we're financing today to become, established and successful, and therefore increase that pie, and that percentage. The realist, i.e. pessimist in me, says a little bit, well, it's a portion of the world that's relatively well off, that has the circular economy part, i.e. I have the financial resources, the headspace, and the security, whatever it takes to be able to adapt my business model, adapt my economy, i.e. every player sort of pulling the same string, because I am afforded that headspace and there's financial backing by my government, by my region, whatever, so that I can do that. It's not a survival thing. So I think it's going to be a decade of reckoning. I think, the past crimes we've committed are really going to come and bite our behinds very, very soon if we don't do something. But I feel that if we don't take the other 70%, 80, 90% of the world with us, and I'm not talking about countries like Germany, France, I'm talking about other regions in the world where people have other problems, i.e. hungry, I'm thirsty, I'm not secure. If it has to go hand in hand with solving that, otherwise I'm afraid that percentage 7% is not really going to move too much.
Yeah, very good point you made on our specific in the what we say global north also responsibility, right? Yeah, very good. And the last part goes to Katharina. What do you think, your vision for the next decade?
Yeah, I'm also split between pessimism and optimism. So I think with the pace we are currently at, it's not going to get so much better. So I think we really need to be faster and do some more extensive steps than we do so far. On the other hand side, we see also that there is a lot of effort now. For example, EU regulation is massively now coming, and it's only going to be taken into effect in the next year. So it's not yet there, but we are planning all for it. Data, there is a huge tech potential that can help us to leverage opportunities. So I think we still have a chance to increase, and we should take all we can to do so. But but yeah, I think we if we continue like now, maybe we don't really increase the number. So everyone should take effort in doing the best he can to improve.
Totally true. I would agree. And one thing is, talking is the starting point, but we also have to go to the doing part. So, and this is what we all are up to. So, and it was a wonderful discussion with you guys. Thank you so much for taking the time and for your valuable insights and visions. It's been a pleasure having you. Thank you a lot, Janine, Marie, and Katharina, and hope to see you around on this topic also. We're planning a big conference in November. Perhaps you would like to join. And yeah, and for all the audience, thank you for listening in. Have a wonderful summer evening. Yeah, see you soon and stay circular. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.